for past 3 months, and people from many parts of the country have attended these. With vision of bringing happiness, quotient in lives, Wellbeing Center is in the mission of generating skillful counselors to bridge the gap between requirements and the available of mental health professionals. With this brief introduction, I request Mr. Krishnan Savraman to welcome all the wonderful people present here to this multiple lectures at this World Mental Health Day celebration.
Good evening, friends. Welcoming you all to this wonderful forum on this great occasion of Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. And Wellbeing Center is vouched to improve the mental health, and by increasing the number of skilled professionals in the field, so that the needy get right attention and right treatment, and for the well-being of their lives. Today, we had decided to host this sessions, and it was last minute we had decided, and generous and people that we have invited without any hesitation. They have agreed to share their thoughts on this. I intend to everybody, whoever is, we call them only later in the evening after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and everyone has accepted. And we have, and also they have suggested, what is the theme can be, and everything we could decide only at that point of time. Thank you so very much. And so now it's time for us to start. So please, Sanjana, could you please start the introduction? Thank you very much, and welcome you all the resource people and all the participants who have joined us to join hands with this mental health, improvement of mental health, and celebration of Mental Health Day. Thank you very much.
So first, I welcome Dr. Ashmeen Kaur, Associate Professor and Head Department of Psychology, HMV, of famous Dav institutions in Jalandhar, Punjab. Her PhD thesis, Academic Stress and Self-Efficacy, is so apt on any day. She has over 21 years of teaching experience, chaired many conferences and board, presenting need of academic excellence. Dr. Ashmeen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, first of all, to the Wellbeing Center, Dr. Krishnan in particular, for inviting me today.
She's got, are you okay? She got the, connection issues. So I would take over here. Dr. Ashmeen Kaur is Associate Professor and a Head of Department of Psychology at HMB, which is a famous DAV group of institutions in Jalandhar. Her PhD thesis is in academic stress and self-efficacy, is so apt for even today. And, in fact, it is more today. And she has got over 21 years of teaching experience and chaired many conferences on board. Now she's presenting in need of academic excellence. Dr. Ashmeen Kaur.
Thank you so much, Dr. Krishnan. First of all, I'm thankful to the Wellbeing Center for inviting me today on this very important day for all of us, that is World Mental Health Day. So, dear participants, it's this day especially for us psychology students, it's very, very important that the need of mental health today, I think we all have realized it more in these pandemic times. The need for mental health was always prevalent, but during these times of COVID-19, I think people have actually felt the need that how important our mental health is. So, dear participants, my topic is that need for academic excellence. And as I'm addressing psychology students, most of you are psychology students. So I think first of all, it's very important that we understand that we need to have a passion for the subject. We need to love the subject which we are studying. And psychology is a beautiful subject. Psychology is something which, it takes us somewhere else. Maybe we tend to get into that mode of self-realization, and we tend to understand ourselves better, our relationships better, and people around us better. So it's very important. I think the first thing is that we are passionate about the subject, and we have that feeling of intuitiveness. It's very important that we have intuitive, the feeling of, inquisitiveness is there to know more, the search for meaning, the search for understanding, and then commitment to our subject, commitment towards ourselves, our people around, and our subject is very important, that we remain committed to what we are doing. There are certain skills, I think, as psychology students, we all need to possess. One is, as I said, you have to be passionate, you should be intuitive, you need to be committed, and you need to be empathetic. Empathy is something which is very, very important for us psychology students. And then genuineness. We need to be genuine. Like Rogers said, it came from Humanistic School of Psychology, and Rogers very clearly cited that genuineness is very important, and we need to have that unconditional positive regard for others, warmth for others, understanding, compassion, patience. These are the words which we need as a good psychologist. And especially, these days, today, in the time of COVID-19 and otherwise also, as we all understand that so much stress is there. Stress is increasing day by day. Our life pace is going faster and faster. And the pace, and we are unable to match up to that pace. So trained psychologists these days are sought after everywhere in all the fields, be it school, be it hospitals, NGOs, rehab centers, or other we have defense defense services. Everywhere they need trained psychologists. So I'll be just talking about, I think I just have 15 minutes of slot which has been given to me. So I will be hurriedly talking about the areas in which you can explore as psychology students. So teaching is one option, we all understand. We all need to, first of all, upgrade ourselves with our qualification. We need to study psychology as a subject at our undergraduate level and then at our postgraduate level. And after that, you can do specialization in various fields which are available. So teaching is one option, like all over India, like if you complete your masters, you can go up for UGC NET. We have options there, that is the National Eligibility Test for Lecturership. And we also have the fellowships there, junior research fellowships and senior research fellowships. And there are many other institutes which are offering these other scholarships also. So research and teaching is one option where you can opt. And then there are other options like counseling is a very, very upcoming field these days. So you can become a family counselor, you can become a relationship counselor, and you can become a school counselor. And if you have specialization in special education, you can even become a special educator. And after the, that movie was released, Amir Khan's movie of Tare Zameen Par, this became very popular. People are aware of learning disabilities now. And in schools also, the school administrations, they are also aware of these learning disabilities which are prevailing. So if you get trained in this field also, you have ample scope these days of a special educator. Then, if you go in the field of educational psychology, teaching of, teaching is a very upcoming field. And in all the teachers training programs also, psychology is a compulsory subject. And teachers are trained like how to enhance their teaching skills. So in the teaching learning process, educational psychology becomes a very, very important field. Then we have, as I said, in counseling, we also have clinical settings. Like, as we said, you can become a become a school counselor. But at clinical settings, like when people are dealing with so many mental health issues, there are, posts of clinical psychologists. There are posts of psychometricians also, where testing is done. And in the clinical side, you can opt for, like, as I said, a clinical psychologist. Then at de-addiction centers, like in Punjab and nearby areas, nearby states in Punjab, there is a problem of drug abuse also. So there is ample scope of becoming a like you can work in a drug de-addiction center. You can become a de-addiction counselor. That is one option you can have. And also, like alcoholism, people who are alcoholics, you treat them in de-addiction centers, and I think that is prevalent all over India. So that is again a very good and a very upcoming field. Then if you study organizational behavior, organizational psychology, you can go up to the level of human resource development is one field. Human resource management is one field where you can go. You can work in multinational companies. The corporate sector hires psychologists for recruitment of right persons for the right jobs. So that is again a very, very good field for all of you. Then even the DIPR, Defense Institute of Research, and Defense Research Institute organization is also DRDO and DIPR. They are also looking in for good trained psychologists for their recruitments in military and defense services. That is again a very important field. And these days, people are actually going into, after they complete their masters, they also sit for those tests which they clear and they become. I have a few of my students who are right now recruiting army personas. They are working in DRDO. So it's again a very good field. And and other where, I think psychology is applied. The applied side is everywhere. I am just giving you I would say a broader viewpoint. So educational psychology, these are the specializations where you can go. Organizational and industrial is one field. Child and developmental is one field where you can deal with child psychopathology and also the learning disabilities, which I refer to, and become a special educator. Then criminal and forensic psychology is also a very, very important field these days, where, people are working, psychologists are working in rehab centers, in jails, and, working with the criminal minds and helping them to, improve and live a better life later on. Clinical, as I already said. Then we also have defense forces, and psychometrician is again a very, very important field for recruitments. There they hire psychologists where they think that this is to assess the kind of personalities in at the IQ levels and the aptitudes and your interests. They hire their people like that. So these are the main, I think, some of the important fields. I hope I've not missed out on any. And ample scope is there, but what is required is our passion for the subject, our commitment towards the subject, that we, love what we are doing and we remain committed. I really believe in the concept of hardiness, which says that it is very important. The three C's: commitment, control, and challenge. So I think these three C's as a student, you must keep in your life, that you should be committed to your life, committed to what you're doing, and you will feel that things are under your control, and take all threats as a challenge and not as fear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. So next we have introducing Dr. Lawrence, head of the psychology department at Anugraha Institute of Social Sciences in Dindigul, the famous institute which trains 600 counselors every year with practical and hands-on training. Dr. Lawrence is a Capuchin order priest, positive psychologist, an excellent family therapist. Dr. Lawrence has an now Dr. Lawrence will speak on importance of family in mental health.
Thank you, Sanchana, and good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to meet everyone on this World Mental Health Day. Congratulations to Wellbeing Center, Krishnan, for hosting this and gathering all the students. In fact, we are celebrating World Mental Health Day by creating beautiful awareness. I feel happy to be part of it, and I'm happy to share with you on this topic of the role of family in mental health, or the importance of family in mental health. So it's a pleasure that I could be here to speak shortly for 15 minutes about the importance of family. Now, if I ask you, if you're a non-vegetarian, you like to eat chicken, if you like to eat chicken, and in case I ask you whether you prefer country chicken or broiler chicken, which would be your preference? Maybe you can chat also. You can send in the chat box. Which one do you prefer, country chicken to eat or to eat broiler chicken? Don't say both. And now the choice is only one you have to have. Which one will you prefer? I think more than 80% of us would prefer a country chicken because we know it's healthy. And you know, there is so much of growing importance about, um, so country chicken, yeah. So there's so much of growing importance about health among all of us, particularly in India. A survey shows that in India, in 2015, 5 years ago, that the insurance went from 65 billion to 100 billion US dollars. I'm sure it will be triple the amount today. Now, people are so much concerned about organic food. They are ready to walk extra miles, ready to spend extra money to buy organic food. And people are very concerned about health checkup. And people are very much oriented towards keeping themselves fit. And exercise or gym has become a part of life, so to say. So there is so much of health consciousness, but unfortunately, we just focus on mostly physical health. But we must know on this mental health day, there is no health without mental health. There is no point in having physical health if there is no mental health. In that regard, once again, congratulations that we could gather and reflect on this. Now, the mental health issue in the world is alarming. The mental health issue is alarming, particularly in India. And it is said India is the youngest nation in few years, but India also most affected nation in terms of mental health. And statistics are alarming. In that regard, to discuss about mental health is very beautiful and various topics are there. And I'm going to shortly speak about the importance of family in mental health. The importance of family in mental health. Now, relationships are found to be very significant in meeting the psychological human need. As basic biological needs are there, for human beings, there are some basic psychological needs. And it is found that only through relationship, these basic psychological needs are met. And in fact, it is said we are born in a family, we live in a family, we die in a family. In that regard, from birth to death, family plays a very vital role in meeting the psychological well-being of a person. And in fact, if practically I ask you to stop for a minute and think about all your worries, it is something about your family or something about your friendship or your relationship, what others have said to you, what others have done to you. If I ask you what is your happiness, mostly 99% of the happiness is about what others are doing to you, how others are treating you, and how you are with others. So in that regard, it is said relationship plays a very vital role. In that regard, family is an important factor. So relationships in general is very important. Family plays a very vital role. And how family plays a very vital role. When we study the concept of imprinting, you will understand that. When we are born into a family, we are like a newspaper, plain paper. A paper is plain, and whatever print is put on the paper, that paper it becomes. I was born in India, so I become an Indian. If I was born into Germany, I become a German. If I was born into a Tamil family, I speak Tamil. If I am born into a Punjabi's family, I speak Punjabi. In other words, when we are born as a child, we are like an empty paper. Whatever we are in a context, so we absorb. In that way, we are also like a sponge. Wherever we are put, we absorb. So the point of imprinting is an important factor to understand the role of family in who we are, not only in a positive sense, but also in a negative sense. I'm a sponge. When I am born, I was put into milk, I absorb milk. I was put into water, I absorb water. I put into oil, I absorb oil. I was put into gutter water, I absorb gutter water. The point is, family plays a significant role, not only in a positive elements of our name, language, capacity, ability, biological input, but also the psychological well-being. That's why various theories of psychology speaks about the centrality of relationship and particularly family. And long ago, Freud found that how family can negatively impact a person's mental well-being. In fact, Freud said, the other is an enemy. Because of this ego, super ego, society is there, I am in trouble. So in fact, he was really understanding the impact of family in a negative sense. Long ago, it was established that schizophrenic patients were 99% were from a very dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional family. So in that regard, family plays a very significant role in enhancing mental health or in a kind of hindering mental health or for the dysfunctional mental health. Now, various research in positive psychology within this recent time have shown that children, when they have a positive ambience, they manifest greater level of mental health and mental well-being. And for psychological well-being, important family well-being is considered to be very, very important. So children, studies have found that children, for example, with their experience with the toddlers, that the young children like 2-3-year-old, and they manifest a greater energy when parents had a good understanding. If parents had a very difficult relationship, even if parents did not show it before the kid can perceive and the energy decreased. For example, a mother is having a baby, holding a baby. If the mother was internally is affected because of certain pain, the child also manifested low energy. Because perceived conflict, it's not only the real conflict, perceived conflict between adults, parents, decreased energy in the children. And they also found that children had lower level of energy to study when these adults or big people ignored their interactions. Not even a conflict, just if you are ignoring them, that also caused so much of pain to the kids. To extend this further, even in the school context, if they perceive teachers not to be warm, not to be engaging, the children did not have energy to study. The point that we are wanting to emphasize, how for children's psychological well-being, not only family conflict, perceived family conflict also, even if the child thinks that there's a conflict, it is decreasing their energy, their well-being, their psychological well-being. And given the time factor, I'm just referring to various researches so that you can have an understanding that we did a research among 11 countries exploring what is the domain of happiness. Where do you get your happiness? Domain, spirituality is a domain, sports is a domain, social media is a domain, work is a domain. So they found where you find happiness more. Interestingly, both in Collectivistic country and individualistic country. Collectivistic countries give more importance to relationship. Individualistic countries give more importance to individuals. Even in individualistic country, they said family is the place they find their happiness, or family is the first domain in which they want to find happiness. In that regard, family plays a very vital role. Now, you are students of psychology, and you are counseling and psychotherapy. You work and with mental health. And today we celebrate Mental Health Day to enhance mental health, awareness of mental health, policy making of mental health, intervention of mental health cannot be complete without the intervention or without taking into consideration the role of family. Very simple biologically, if there is a history of depression, if there's a history of schizophrenia, if there's a history of mental illness in the family, it is going to come. So we need to take care of that family history. So in any psychiatric ward, in any mental health facility, family history is an important factor. This we understand. This mostly we work. But what we ignore is the psychological impact of family on the mental health of people. Sometimes a psychiatrist, some psychiatrists may disagree. The psychiatrists do not have time, and they do not pay attention to the family context in which this mental health issue is triggered. It is amplified, it is sustained. Triggered, amplified, and sustained. A person can be on medication for a long years, but because of the family situation. So unless and until we consider the psychological factors of the family, we cannot enhance the mental health. I'm really happy there are more than hundreds of scholars, students, faculty members who are working there. And in case we want to make a commitment to enhance mental health, we want to do intervention in mental health, without intervening into the family, we cannot successfully, meaningfully, holistically, we can do intervention of mental health. And it is found often with the children and teenagers who have got acting out behaviors, who have got issues. They come from a dysfunctional family. I come from a counseling and psychotherapy background primarily, and I always tell a child counseling, a teenager counseling is always going to end in family counseling. Because a child, a teenager is affected because there's a dysfunctional family. So it's so important that we need to consider the role of family in mental health. Secondly, it is said the biggest stress for an adult is that of coming from family. The biggest stress, workplace, financial, or any other stress an adult can handle easily. But when it comes to the family, it is the biggest stress. It's Krishna, I'm aware that I have just 2 minutes. So it is said, family in trouble is the breeding ground of mental issues. So it's a strong statement, but I want to kind of own it. And I just want this message comes across, get across to all the psychology students and professionals present here. Family is in trouble is the breeding ground of mental issues. So if you want to enhance mental health, we need to enhance family health. So I just want to conclude saying that no health without mental health. No mental health without family health. So no health without mental health. That's a slogan maybe of the world today as we celebrate mental health. No health without mental health. But I just want to remind you there's no mental health possible without family health. So I wish that we can all engage in this project of mental health through a happy family. Thank you very much and wish you all the best. And this is my reference in case you need to reach us. You can do that www.anugragacollege.edu or www.anugragainfo, and my email ID lalacaps@yahoo.com. Thank you once again, Krishnan, and
Thank
all
you,
the
Dr. Kaur.
members.
So before inviting the next speaker, the participants can post their questions in the chat box below.
Thank you, Father Lawrence. We will catch up.
Thank you.
Sanjana, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you can go ahead. The next speaker.
I think someone has posted one question here.
Okay. Okay.
Do you have
You
time?
can-
To Dr. Lawrence, I guess.
Yeah. So it's a practical question. It's an everyday question. It's also a big question. You can contact me, but in a simple answer, how to overcome fear. One of the thing, face it. Facing it is the best way to overcome fear. And there are methods, ways how to face it. There are ways how we can face it. But one of the important way to overcome fear is face it. The second simplest technique is empower yourself. Fear grips us because we feel that we cannot manage it. That's why whenever there's a fear, there's a judgment in the mind that there's a threat to me and I cannot manage it. So whenever you feel weak, you feel fear. Whenever you feel strong, you don't feel fear. You are afraid of darkness, you put on a light, you are strong. You are afraid of enemies, there's a bulletproof, you are strong. So in that way, empower yourself. There are also ways. So given the time factor, I just stop here. Face it, empower it. And I think in case you need to reach, you can reach me. Thank you very much.
Participants.
Dr. Lawrence.
Sanjana, go ahead.
Next we have is Dr. Shilpa Pandit, Faculty of Psychology, Chinmaya Vishwavidyapith, a renowned positive psychologist who works on different domains, social and human development. She is a pioneer researcher in Indian psychology who prefers a non-Euro-American framework in teaching and practice of psychology in India. Here's something which she's going to talk about: positive mindset and resilience. Dr. Shilpa Pandit, I welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I thank Mr. Krishnan as well as all the audience here for an excellent participation for the World Mental Health Day. First point that I would like to make here is that it is very important to talk on mental health because we were trying to raise awareness and destigmatize the full notion of mental illness. Second point that I would like to make here before we start talking about a positive mindset is that the current COVID-19 situation has had a differential impact on different people and created additional challenges in some situations, as well as an opportunity to completely reframe our mindset and completely change the way we operate, the way we function, and the way we transact in this world. So with these two initial remarks, let us look at what do we mean by a mindset. In order to understand what do we mean by a mindset, mindset is a term which is used in psychology to look at a kind of an overall picture of the situation, how a person looks at the situation from an overall perspective. So, and it's also a set, it's a way of looking, it's a way of approaching. There are some researches which are done on Indian mindset, that an Indian mindset somehow seems to be different than other mindsets, probably because it is able to hold paradoxical and opposite views in itself. So that if you are interested in reading that research, you can read about a professor called Professor J.B.P. Sinha, and he has written some wonderful papers on Indian mindset. Now, so the example was because we wanted to talk about and understand the word mindset. So what kind of a mindset do we normally have? We find that in order to understand what kind of a mindset we normally have, let's go to the most measurable and concrete aspect of our body. And the most concrete and the measurable aspect in our body is our physiological response to situation. In the earliest times, there has been a kind of a tradition of research to look at the organism and the organism's response to the environment from an evolutionary perspective. And in that perspective, we have arrived at several important words and concepts that describe our experience, and one of them is, which you will understand easily, it's called as a fight and a flight response. So whenever the body gives a fight and a flight response, you have a particular mindset that goes with it, right? So say for example, you're looking at a group of deer in a jungle. And a group of deer in a jungle suddenly hears the voice of an approaching tiger or a predator. What happens? Suddenly you see what is called as a fight or a flight response in the deer. Mostly you will see the flight response. Now, if you understand, if you're a student of psychology, you will understand that there are three basic pillars in psychology. One is cognition, second is affect, and the third is behavior. What do we mean by cognition? Cognition are all those activities which involve reasoning, analysis, attention, memory, processing, etc. What is affect? Affect are all those experiences which will involve feelings, sentiments, and emotions. And behavior are all those which you can observe. So, coming to this example of a group of deer which hear a predator, and what is their behavior? You will see their behavior in terms of their bodies, in terms of a flight response, right? But if you were to transpose this example in case of human beings, and you would say if human beings find something which is threatening, which is disturbing, which is troubling, which is new, which is novel to their environmental understanding, then is it so that there is always a fight or flight response? Recent research finds that it is not true. If you read any books on health psychology, especially by Taylor, Taylor found another response that comes in among human beings in 2000 is a published paper called Tend and Befriend. Tend and Befriend response is very close to the earlier speaker who was talking about family law, Professor Dr. Lawrence Viswanathan, about the role of family and relationships. So humans also tend to, because humans are different than deer, because humans are animals and organisms, yet they are slightly different from the other organisms in biology. Humans also have an additional response which is not a fight or a flight response. So humans tend to have a tend and befriend response. So what is the tend and befriend response? The tend and befriend response is driven by the secretion of oxytocin. If you have studied psychology, or if you have not, then you would know perhaps that fight and flight response is driven by the secretion of our adrenocorticosteroid hormone, right? The body immediately secretes in great amount adrenaline, and adrenaline starts scanning the environment, and the adrenaline pushes a series of physiological responses which make your body ready for fight and flight, right? However, the tend and befriend response, which I am going to just add here today, is triggered by the secretion of oxytocin. And so then what happens? When oxytocin is triggered, oxytocin is called as a cuddle hormone, or a neurotransmitter which is related to relationships, love, affection, and belonging. So Shelley B. Taylor found that human beings also respond to situations in the environment with a what she called it as a tend and befriend response. A tend and befriend response made with the secretion of oxytocin will make you to connect with people, to talk with people, to try and understand the situation in collectivity, in togetherness, to make sense of the situation in togetherness. And humans are specifically programmed for this because humans have language, humans communicate with each other in language, and language is a very big achievement. But in the current context of COVID and the future possibilities, humans also have used technology. So we first note the point that I just made, that we have used fight and flight response in our conventional understanding of psychology, and said that human beings react to external environment, especially when there is a threat in an external environment, with a fight and flight response. But the latest research also says that not only do humans have a fight and flight response, but humans also have a tend and befriend response. And the tend and befriend response, which is triggered by oxytocin, causes humans to come together. So you'll find that during disasters, during crisis, people tend to congregate together. People tend to sit and come together. So that's point number one. The second thing that happens when you have a tend and befriend response is that when it is triggered by oxytocin, you tend to become more pro-social, more helping, more kind, and more caring, because it is triggered by oxytocin, right? So, and the third thing that happens in terms of cognition is that you are not just involved in the survival of the self, but you are also involved in the survival of the group. So from an evolutionary perspective, there are two ways of adaptation. One is survival of the self, and second is the survival of the group that you belong to. So one way of understanding a positive mindset from a Euro-American scholarship and the latest in empirical research is that you shift your response from a fight to flight, which is adrenaline-driven response, to an oxytocin-driven response, which is tend and befriend. Evolutionarily, it makes a lot of sense because you shift from survival of yourself to the survival of your group. And this is an absolutely important point in the context of the crisis that we are facing. When we are having a tend and befriend response, our attention and cognitive capacity are looking at different elements in the environment. Even when it is adrenaline driven, the organism scans the environment, right? There is a higher attention for short term. You can imagine a deer just, looking for the signs of the predator. However, when you are tend and befriend, you are also increasing your attention. But the elements that you are increasing your attention are different. The quality of your attention is different. The quality of your processing is different when you are oxytocin driven, when you are giving a tend and befriend response. So what happens when mothers find that they really need to take care of their children? They really need to take care of the infant children. What do they do? They make alliances with other mothers. They make alliances with others who can help the survival of their children. So what we are saying is that in the understanding of mindset, the first shift that we need to make in our cognition, in our assets, and in our behavior is from fight and flight to tend and befriend. This will have implications in the way you process situations cognitively as a human being, which means that you will understand that there is a problem, but this is not to say that you will deny the problems that exist even now during COVID or post-COVID, but that you will acknowledge, but you will find support. You will ask questions, you will find alliances, You will seek mentors. This is an oxytocin-driven tend and befriend response. You will friend others and you will try to process and problem solve differences. Second point, your attention and will be on different situations. When we study Gestalt, we study that there is a figure and there is a ground, right? So whatever you will put in your figure or your foreground will be different. You will be more interested in relationships. You'll be more interested in sustaining those relationships, and you'll find support from them. And behavior-wise, you'll be calmer because you feel trusted and cared for, because you are trusting and caring the right and the correct person. In this way, if we do a tend and befriend response collectively, as a community, our mindset towards addressing adversity, our mindset towards looking at disturbances or uncertainties will change. This is the theoretical explanation for collectivistic societies having more resilience, especially in times of crisis. Now, this is one way of understanding. The other way of understanding is by doing practices which are in our cultural system, which are also secular as much as some of them are rooted in our religious tradition. Note that most of our religious traditions look at collectivity as a source of strength. In Hindu psychology, you have something called as satsang. In Hindu psychology, you have bhajans, kirtans. In Christianity, you have mass. You have the congregation of the believers. And so it is in Islam and Buddhism. So the religious traditions of across the world have utilized this trend of finding resource and succour in the presence of others and solving problems. And that is something that a collectivistic culture such as India can leverage. So if you are trying to leverage the resources from our culture, then that is a second point of having a positive mindset. The third point and the final point, I understand that I have less time. The third and the final point of having a positive mindset is to find that positive mindset within you by giving some time to yourself to contemplate every day. So just the last addition to this, today morning also there was some talk that I had on World Mental Health Day, and we were reviewing a lot of literature that has come. It's a very recent literature. Some studies have been published only in May and June. And those literatures, the verdict on how India is reacting to the impact of COVID-19 is mixed. One or two research papers say, in fact, survey research papers, that Indians seem to be reacting better than expected to the lockdown and its measures. And then the paper goes on to analyze why is it so. So one of the things that they say is that even though there are social distancing norms, even though there is a lot of fear and anxiety, Indians have found ways to support themselves. And one of the ways that they may have found is finding support in each other. The second way to find support within oneself is to set time out and sit and contemplate on oneself, one's day-to-day lifestyle, and plan for the day. So you are the center of your attention for 10 minutes every day. Whether you do it religiously or you do it secularly, doesn't matter. As a psychologist, I'm agnostic to that. What I'm interested is for that 10 minutes, you look at yourself, you are your friend. You tend and befriend yourself. You look at your cognition, you look at the way you are spending your time cognitively, you look at the way you are getting attentive or distracted, you look at the way you are processing, are you forgetting, are you remembering, are you planning, is your day going on fine? You do this 10 minutes, 10 different practice in the morning and in the evening, and that will take care of strengthening your own mindset to go through the challenges of life and not to convert the stress into distress. And when you are a role model for that, around you a community will develop. With this, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much. Thank you, Krishnan, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Papatak. The next we have is Dr. S. Shashikala, Assistant Professor of Psychology at the University of Madras. Known for her research skills, she's a very active teacher, kind enough to share her knowledge not only in her own to her own students, but also from other colleges. She always looks at things from research perspective. With current pandemic situation, we're keen to know her take on the future research trends. I welcome Dr. Shashikala.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sanjana, and thank you, Mr. Krishnan, for inviting me for this the virtual platform for today. So I'm not very sure, Mr. Krishnan, whether it is possible for me to complete the whatever I have prepared for this in this 15 minutes, but I'll try to do justice for this 15 minutes. So let me share my slides before talking anything else, because if I deviate, I know my students know that I'll talk and finally I'll not be able to complete the slides. Actually, I am very happy to share a few thoughts today on the research trends, how it is going to be in the near future to the budding psychologists and researchers, because it is actually a very significant event now, how we are going to proceed towards research. So let me just move a little faster so that we can complete all the slides. So I would like to show you a few statistics on the current research trends. If you look at usually when we are doing a presentation, whatever is in the last few slides, it will be actually registered, very vividly. So what I thought initially, let me give all sorts of whatever the current happening in terms of negative, or we can even perceive it as negative, or it is little sad or worrisome. But at the end, I thought we will talk about how it can be made positive also. Okay, so these are the statistics that I collected. There are many studies done in China, Italy, and Singapore, and even in India, there are studies which are going on where you can see that there are lots of psychopathological manifestation, depression, distress, sleep disturbances, and PTSD symptoms, negative affectivity, more of negative. I could sense that all of you are a little worried by looking at all the concepts which I am indicating here, lethargy, headache, etc. And here you can see that 67% of the respondents, whoever is healthcare workers. So you just imagine all of us come under this category, healthcare workers. So it is actually a very worrisome issue now, because it is 67% of those respondents who are actually mental health workers or general health workers like doctors, nurses, and people who work with patients are actually having lots of problems, psychological problems, which actually needs to be addressed. These are also few other studies which actually the very interesting point is that not only that the people who are experiencing this lockdown, but people who are quarantined, people who have been quarantined due to COVID positive had been found to have lots of emotional problems. You can see that frustration, anger, boredom, which actually is going to be a very major problem later on. If at all we are not going to address those issues, I'm sure that it is going to be a serious problem later on. There are lots of unhealthy behaviors which also had increased. You can see that substance abuse have increased, and more of even among carrying mothers, we can see that there are lots of pregnant women. There are lots of issues with regard to how they are going
slides,
to.
Ma'am, slides are not visible. Can you share the slides?
Oh, sorry. 1 second.
No problem. No problem.
I thought I shared. Okay. Sorry.
There is a share screen option.
Yeah.
Now it is coming. Yeah.
So let me show you the earlier screen, so that it is not. I'm not able to move to the earlier screen. Okay, fine. I'll anyway share the slides with you so that you can refer it later on. So here you can see that lots of distress and substance abuse and other unhealthy behaviors, as well as pregnant women are also having lots of psychological issues, which actually is going to affect the children as well. So we need to definitely address these issues. So we are talking about research and how the future trend is going to be. I'm sure that lots of you are wondering how we are going to do these kind of research at all. So that is what actually today's my focus is going to be: what kind of research is required as of now, and how we can proceed towards in this conditioned environment. I would say it is a conditioned environment because it is not easy for us to go for data collection and do research hands-on, like how we go for field work and field study and do lots of data collection, etc., which is not actually possible as of now. So in this, we can see that there is a study which is done in China, Spain. It is actually a very different cross-cultural study, which also had reported that similar kind of problem exists across culture. So I'm not able to move to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, so COVID-19 has quickly become a global health emergency, resulting in not only physical health concerns, it is more to do with psychological concerns also. Okay, so risk factors is irrespective of gender, age, and type of illness or employment status. It is actually very serious concern as of now. So we need to address it. So how are we going to address the research issues? So what we are going to do, I mean, in the sense how we have to proceed towards a research problem or identifying a research problem. I thought of yesterday, I just went after, as Mr. Krishnan said, yesterday after 4 o'clock only, we decided to go ahead with the topic, and after that I was just thinking of what kind of research problems emerged in these 6 months. Based on that, I thought I'll give you some points or ideas what we have to do, or based on the interaction that happened with public also, we are actually trying to find out what kind of research problem we can start working on. Be with the flow. Just I thought that we need to first of all understand how the environment is, how the surrounding is, how far we are able to get to know the information. So being with flow in the sense how the movement is. So lockdown 1, lockdown 2, unlock 1, unlock 2. It is actually government is giving different kind of lock and unlock. But I don't know how we are going to adapt to it. That is also a question. So be with the flow. Stay connected. If we are stay connected, but based on social distance, of course, how we are going to get the information, observation. Earlier, we used to say we have to observe people. Psychologists, we need to observe people. But now we are saying that observation also, there is a lot of limitations. So what we can do is we can, over the phone or based on the interaction with people, we can see what kind of trauma or what kind of problems that is around each and every individual, which can be addressed. Of course, the feelings and emotions of people need to be addressed. And the important component I felt was when we spoke to people who are in the low economic group or people who are having lots of other emotional issues, it is actually a very important concern for psychologists to address those problems. If at all we don't do a research, I am sure it is not going to be easy for us to help them. So first of all, we need to understand or do a research based on the need of the society. Understanding personality, actually we would have been wondering in India, I told that it happened in China, studies were done in China, Italy, Singapore, in many places. But what about in India? Yeah, India, there are lots of studies. In fact, the Department of Psychology in collaboration with Mark Atreya had done a research in which we found that the preventive behavior, it is only 50% of the people are actually following the rules and norms which are set by the government. In that case, what happens to the rest of the 50%? And definitely those are the people who are going to be at spreading the disease to others. So it is actually a very serious issue to concern. So I thought personality, understanding the personality and why they are doing like that, and what kind of impact they are creating to the society need to be understood, and that also should be addressed. Role of psychologist and mental health professional in all these aspects definitely is a major concern as of now. Now, talking about the qualities of a researcher as an individual or as a psychologist, if you are getting into research, we need to be committed. If you are not going to have that kind of sense towards the topic that are under, very, very much importance, I am sure that it is not going to be successful. So commitment, sincerity, and I'm sure all of you will agree with all the rest of the points that I have given. Let me go on to the next slide. Yeah, so now only actually I'm going to talk about research. Mr. Krishnan, I'm sure there are five or 7 more minutes left. Yeah. So the research type that I have spelled out, when I spoke about many research findings, I don't know how many of you were wondering how come within this 8 months of time, they were able to publish the research. If you have thought about it, I'm very happy that you are a perfect researcher, because that is the question that you should have raised by now. How this is possible to publish so many research articles within this 8 months time. So it is because of, it is not based on a field study, or it is not based on primary. It is actually based on the review of literature, which is existing. So you will be wondering, review of literature? COVID, this is the first time we are experiencing. How come review of literature? Of course, there were lots of other virus spread that had happened in different countries, Western countries also, where they have understood the impact of those diseases among people, and also a different kind of lockdown and quarantine, how it had affected these people, and they have understood the importance of it, and they have made it as a proper finding for us to be very cautious and do research further. So when I said meta-analysis or systematic review, it should be, you cannot simply collect so many research articles and just say that, yeah, all the research articles have done this way and this is the finding that had been expressed. It is not, so easy. So it is actually, there are certain methodology for us to do review of literature or systematic review and make it as a paper. So that is what I have given one method called as Prisma, which is actually a preferred report of systematic review and meta-analysis. So that can be used. I have given it as urgent because unless we are aware, or unless we are, getting that information, I'm sure it is not going to be easy for us to take action regarding to the problem. So exploratory in nature. So we need to be very particular about how exploring the lots of variables which are connected to the emotional problems and psychological problems. Of course, exposed factor research. Also, I am actually going to, this is more of research methodology, full chapter. I'm just mentioning all the concepts. These are the topics which actually to be addressed immediately, so that we know what is the current scenario and how we are going to identify the causes and what action we are going to take. Of course, in order to understand the information or about a particular individual case study method also is very much important. And then you are actually looking at a point called as quasi-experimental. As I told you like earlier, if you had thought about how the findings are possible within 8 months, now this should be another question in your mind. How is it possible to do an experimental research if schools are not there, colleges are not functioning? Then how is it possible to do an experimental research, especially in school and college population? Of course, in general public also, if you are not allowed to have a gathering over there in order to conduct your intervention, how is it possible? That is what, there is an answer for you in the next slide. Of course, longitudinal research also is very much important. Krishnan, don't get tensed. I'll finish in 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So the method or how we are going to do the research during this lockdown period is that one is an online survey. Of course, all of you are using very comfortably Google Forms, and you will be wondering why I haven't given Google Form as one of the online survey method data collection. This is because when you are submitting, I am very particular that you have to submit any research article to a reputed journal. to an indexed journal. If you are going to submit it to an indexed or a reputed journal, they are they'll be asking for your data to be shared with them. In that case, it means that you need to have a very strong evidence that you have collected that data is genuine. Of course, they don't say that Google form is not collecting a genuine data. This SurveyMonkey and Q.in, there are lots of other apps also available to collect data. The only thing is you have to pay, but it is a very minimal pay instead of taking Xerox, because earlier you used to take Xerox. Now instead of taking Xerox, we can use lots of these platforms where your IP also is actually registered, in the sense from where you have collected data and what time you have collected data, whether it is from one individual, you have collected multiple data, etc., are actually indicated in this different kind of apps and like SurveyMonkey and Q. So be very careful in collecting data, because if you're publishing it as an international journal, I'm sure they'll be looking at the authenticity of the data. Simulated environment, it's very interesting actually. Yesterday only I came to know, to be very honest, yesterday only I came to know about all these the simulated environment which can be used for psychological training as well. So when I say earlier slide, I told you experimental or quasi, of course, complete control is not possible. That's why I've given quasi experimental research. So here we are seeing that simulated environment can help us to give training for people. It can be psychological training, skills training, or it can be any kind of training which can be offered. Here all the training sessions, the earlier one is driving, the second one is like in an army, and here it is kind of elderly people who are, the environment is created in such a way that they have that feel. Here the last one is about the pleasantness, of how you can bring the pleasantness in the environment also, and how you are going to do the research. Virtual lab, of course, there are lots of even engineering and science students are doing their experimental experiments in using their system, using a virtual lab. So there are lots of opportunities and there are lots of things to be explored, which actually is going to help us how to do future research. Now there is a question whether it is going to be the same. No, it is not actually. Yesterday when I spoke about, I said I'm going to talk about pandemic, Mr. Krishnan said, no, you shouldn't talk about it. I said I have to talk about it because now there is a need for research in that area. And after 2 years, maybe, I don't know whether I am exaggerating, or 2 years or 3 years, after that there is going to be a definite change in the environment and the behavioral tendency also. That time we need to find out what actually kind of research we can do, and now that time we can change. As of now, for a few years now, definitely there is a need for us to build or rebuild the lost or whatever the hope or the negative vibration or the feelings that people have experienced. We need to bring it out and then go back to normal. So that itself will take its own time. So of course we need to identify the resources, whichever resources that are available. So as I told you yesterday only, I came to know. So now I'm just thinking how we can utilize that artificial intelligence in conducting research or experiments like that, identifying the resources and optimal utilization of it. Survival of fitness is ma'am actually spoke about control, challenge, and Dr. Ashmeen spoke about challenge, control, and commitment. It is actually nothing but survival of fitness, where we are trying to identify what the environmental situation and trying to adapt ourselves, which is actually very important. The last one actually is goodness of it. You might be wondering what is the difference between the second and third point. Second one is how we are trying to adapt to the situation, we as individual. Goodness of it, I thought earlier theories, whether it can be applied as of now, how we are going to match, how we are going to compare the earlier theories and apply it in the current scenario. That is what I thought as goodness of fit. Okay, so with that, I am concluding the importance or what kind of research that we can do. I'm sure it is not sufficient, but at least I thought I'll just give you an idea of what can be done. Okay, what best can be done out of the available resources. Now, you can see in the last slide I have just given, let us explore, understand, and provide professional help to the society in general and needy in particular. That is what we together as psychologists, we need to build and help the society by utilizing whatever the resources that are available. This is what called as cold cycle of experiential learning, where we are in this stage and it is like a cycle where we need to am I audible? Yeah, I don't know. The last slide, I think I am not able to present. Of course, it is a cold learning where we need to help each other in terms of understanding what is happening, and we need to conceptualize also. So I'm done with the trends in research, Krishnan. Of course, I'm not very sure whether it is complete enough. That's why in the last slide I've given my mail ID. So if it is possible, you can just share it so that people can contact me later on for any further update.
Yeah. Would you like to take a couple of questions?
Yeah. It's my pleasure. Actually, I like to take questions. Yeah, if you want.
Since we have
is it in the chat?
You can take one question. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Questions are there?
Anybody? Yeah, one person can ask a question. I mean, whoever has got.
Okay, I'll type one person had asked for my contact. Yeah. I'll just type. By the time if anybody asks questions, I can answer. Otherwise, they can contact me in the mail ID, and my phone number is. Okay. Yes. Krishnan, can you please share this? I'm not very sure whether it is to everyone or.
I will do that. I will do that. Yeah.
I think it is for.
Thank you, Dr. Shashikala. Thank you very much. You know, it was a short notice.
I am shocked. See, either they have understood everything or they didn't understand anything. That is actually I don't know whether which one is true. Thank you, Dr. Vidya, for your comment. And okay, any questions you can raise later on also to my mail ID. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a short notice, and you know, you obliged. Thank you very much.
So next we have is Dr. Cecilia Chettiar, Head of Psychology Department at Manivini Nanavati Women's College and practitioner, author, and avid researcher in social and cultural psychology. Dr. Cecilia advocates suicide prevention, effective parenting, and self-discovery. Her book, Why Are You You? Is a very popular book by an Indian psychologist. Dr. Cecilia is going to talk about the need of counseling and to break the stigma. I welcome you, Dr. Cecilia.
Thank you, Sanjana. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and once again, I must congratulate the Center of Wellbeing for a well thought out and a very compact program put together on the occasion of World Mental Health Day. And as is the etiquette these days, I hope everyone can see and hear me. Yeah, no problems there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so I don't have any slides. I thought this could be a discussion rather than a presentation. I was given a brief to speak about the prejudices and the stigma relating to mental health. I think all of us know that nobody wants to talk about their emotional issues, and they don't want to tell somebody if they're going to go and take help for it. So let's look a little more closely at what we mean when we talk about prejudice. The textbook definition of prejudice is when you negatively evaluate somebody because they belong to a particular group. And in that sense, we are all prejudiced individuals. We always believe that something that is different from us is something that is wrong. And if you're honest, we'll realize that we do this more often than not. Prejudice textbooks give lots of different classifications of it. I don't want to follow the textbook classification. I just want to talk about two types of prejudice. Prejudice towards others, that's the first one. And the second is prejudice towards self. Let's start off with prejudice towards others. Like I just said, Anyone who's different, there's something wrong with them. They can't be correct. And if that person who's different also seems to show something that is a little less, then we have an even bigger problem. Some of my clients are celebrities. Some of my clients are other mental health professionals. Almost all of them are extremely well educated. If they are past 30 years of age, then 98% of them approximately would be people who have done at least a postgraduate degree. And yet, these are people who, if they see me in public, will not come up to hello me because they don't want to tell people that they know a mental health professional personally. When you go out and if you're with your family and your friends and you meet your gynac or you meet your cardiologist or you meet your nutritionist, you're very happy to introduce them to your friends and family and say, you know what, I go to this person and this person has helped me with my health issues, with my heart issues, with my lung issues, kidney issues, whatever. But you don't necessarily do that when it comes to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. At least on this count, I think both of us, whether you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, doesn't matter. Both of us are equally ignored in the public space. And over the years, I think all of us have learned to laugh at it because, sometimes you'll get a text just 5 minutes after you've faced your client and they have ignored you, turned away and walked, and then sent you a text quietly saying, sorry, doc, I didn't want to say hello because my family doesn't know that I'm seeking counseling, or my in-laws were with me and I didn't want them to know. So yeah, that's a little sad that in this day and age, though we talk about it and there's so much of publicity about mental health, we're not open to the idea of accepting that we have a problem. And it's the saddest when mental health professionals do this. So I don't want to talk about the lay people. I want to talk about us mental health professionals who refuse to accept first that we need help. Second, if we are seeking help, to acknowledge that we are seeking help. We want to be those people who help others. And that is the prejudice we need to really target amongst mental health professionals. The other prejudice, which is the prejudice towards self, is a bigger issue. It's a social issue. It's not a mental health issue. The minute I say that I have a problem, financial problem, emotional problem, physical problem, academic problem, it means I'm saying that I am less. And if I'm less, that is unacceptable. That's a question we could ask ourselves. Why is that so? In this drive or in this race for excellence, when we tell people, do your best, I have a question. What's wrong with being mediocre? Why can't I just accept mediocrity? Maybe I'm mediocre at work, but I'm a terrific mom or I'm a terrific wife. So I'm mediocre in one space of my life, but excellent in others. Why is that not acceptable? This is also prejudice. And it's not just a mental health prejudice. It spills over onto mental health. But the source is not mental health. The source is me within myself. A lot of you, some of you may be students, some of you may be professionals, but just randomly think about this. If you were to even hire a maid at your home, you would want, the best bang for the buck, which means maximum service for minimum money, and not just maximum service, the best kind of service. You're not willing to accept someone who's mediocre. In academic institutions, sometimes we have students who apply for a master's in psychology program or a clinical psychology program. We psychology faculty members have to ask ourselves this: why am I not willing to take someone with a low percentage for a clinical psychology program? If you want to get into a clinical psychology program, you have to be excellent in your marks. Are we not guilty of perpetuating prejudice? If you are a professional, if you are, say, an HR professional, the one who does all the recruitments, again, you're looking to get the best. There is a very nice word in the English language, which I think we need to talk about more instead of talking about prejudice. And that word is called inclusion. Today, as mental health professionals, we are talking about getting equal rights for the specially abled, for the differently abled, for anyone who is less than the other, but we are not willing to accept anyone who gives us less in any aspect of our lives. And then we expect that prejudice will just go away because we talk about it. Let's be honest, is that going to happen? And I don't know how the settings for the chat are set. I'd just like to ask the organizers if any of the participants would like to raise a question. Either they can do it on audio or in the chat box. Either way is fine by me, because this is a question I'm actually asking all of you who are listening. Are you willing to accept anything less than the best?
Participant, you can unmute and you can ask.
No, Pramanika, thank you for being honest there.
That would be fine. Because
I
if
think somebody else
too
is
many
speaking, but
questions
I
at the
can't hear
same
them.
time, if it is too many questions at the same time, it will be difficult to answer.
No, I don't want to take too many questions. I want an answer to this question.
Yes.
How many of us are willing to take less
Thank
than
you.
the best? You can just put it on the chat box. The minute I say something is less than the best and it is unacceptable to me, I'm immediately classifying that as different. Less, different, not good enough, not worthy, should not be given equal opportunities. When I talk about exclusion in every sphere of life, why will someone with a mental health issue go and talk to a mental health professional and say, hey, listen, I have a problem? Even if as an organization, as a corporate entity, if you have a well-being center, one of the centers I spoke at, Unilever, everybody knows the name Unilever. It is massive. I think it's one of the topmost organizations in the world. And the well-being program they have, when we mental health professionals discuss how corporate well-being programs should be conducted, we always talk about the Unilever program. It's an excellent program. When I went to conduct a workshop there, when I went to speak, firstly, most of them didn't come because they didn't get time. They had too many things to do, and the officials or their bosses or their managers didn't give them that time and say, go attend that workshop and come. If you do go attend that workshop and come, the question is, what's wrong with you? Are you mad? Even after addressing those questions, if you put yourself out there, or the Wellbeing Center offers you a counselor, you do not want to go to the counselor in your workplace. Why? Because you will be judged, you will be considered less, then you will not be considered for that promotion, you will not be considered for that raise, you will not be considered good enough, and you will pay the price for it. As long as we continue to be a society that is not inclusive, that is not open to all levels of performance, we will continue to be prejudiced. And then that prejudice will spill over to mental health. Let's think about that further. So then what is the alternative? If you don't look for excellence, there needs to be some parameters, right? Because for us, we always need a yardstick, something to measure things by. So we've always looked at excellence and good performance to decide whether this is a good candidate for whatever position, as a student, employee, or even as a life partner. Like, does this person tick all the right boxes? We're checking all of that all the time. How else do we understand or evaluate whether the person is good enough for us or no? We do not have any parameters in place which allow us to understand whether the human being who's going to be part of our institution, organization, or our life is a well-adjusted, good human being in that sense. Someone will not cause harm to the others, not cause harm to self or the organization or the institution. That is not our priority. Our priority is show me your certificates, show me your mark sheets, show me your past experience, show me your last salary slip. Based on that, I'll decide how good you are. And as long as people are being evaluated like this, as long as we are seeking only the best, as long as we make mediocrity a crime, as long as we say being different is a cause for fear and a cause for danger, prejudice will continue. And though this is a workshop for only mental health, or just let's just remember that mental health is just reflecting, the field of mental health is reflecting what is prevalent in society. So everyone here today, if you can take anything back from this very brief session of mine, I think what we could who is interested to go in for evaluation. That is true. That is absolutely true, Krishnan. So if there's anything that you want to take away from this, just ask yourself, what all are you prejudiced against? Not just about mental health. You reduce your prejudices in every other aspect of your life. And in fact, remove the word prejudice completely. Just take away the word prejudice. Think about the word inclusion. let the word inclusion be part of your life and say, I'm welcoming and accepting of everyone, whichever way they are. I may not like it, I may disagree, but that doesn't mean I am going to think that the other person is less or even more than me. And I think we will have significantly addressed, not solved, at least addressed the prejudice issue. I'd just like to sign off by saying that everyone's different and that's okay because everyone is welcome. Let's not let the politics of polarization get to us. Let's just be inclusive. Thank you. And I think how many times.
Thank you, Dr. Cecilia, for your, opinion. It's really nice. I would also like to add one point, what I observed, and I also did personalized research on this topic. The reason why some of the people were stigmatized of coming to a counselor or a psychologist, what I understood is that some of the psychologists actually misdiagnose issues. Hello?
Yes, hi Sanjana, I can hear you.
Yeah. So some of the psychologists actually misdiagnosed some patients. Like I had one of my friends, friend. So he was misdiagnosed by a psychologist, and I've seen many people like that who are actually stigmatized because of that issue also.
Yeah, and the challenge here is why is the stigma only in the mental health field? Misdiagnosis exists in every medical field. There are people who have died because of misdiagnosis. But the flag for mental health is more than it is for physical health.
Yeah, because mental health includes also our personal life, our feelings, and it also
Physical health doesn't.
because mental health has a very big connection with physical health.
Right. Yes, thank you all of you. I'm seeing all your lovely messages. I'm glad I could maybe touch at least some chord there. Is there any other question? I also thank Sanjana for her inputs that perhaps misdiagnosis could be part of the reason for the prejudice.
Thank you once again, Dr. Cecilia. It was wonderful having you here. And I'm so sorry, it was really a very, very short notice, and you obliged such a darling work. Thank you so very much.
Always happy to help you.
All
So
right.
I welcome Dr.
the meeting now. Yeah.
Professor of Psychology from Karnataka University, Dharwad, in state of Karnataka. Positive psychologist and works on a very difficult task, forgiveness. Currently conducting a longitudinal study on forgiveness had helped many souls to come to terms of reality and heal them by teaching forgiveness. Dr. Kamble on self-healing and forgiving self and others. That's what he's going to talk about today.
Krishnan, I would like to share my screen.
Yeah, one second, just a minute.
Yes.
Yeah, you can. Dr. Kamble, you can do that.
Yes. Krishnan, is it visible, my slides?
No. No, sir.
Krishnan?
Not.
Network problem. Yes, now it's visible, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, all the participants. And today I'll be speaking to you all about self-healing. And here I would like to concentrate on forgiving self as well as others and how it can be self-healing to a person. And since we're celebrating it as a World Mental Health Day today, that is, we're trying to bring in awareness. There are certain qualities within our systems, or we can call it as the altruistic, pro-social equipment within us. We call it as forgiveness. And forgiveness is often defined as an individual and voluntary internal process of letting go of feelings. Why it is voluntary? Because you decide whom you are going to forgive and how you are going to get rid of those resentment, it could be, or bitterness, or anger, or even need for vengeance, or even retribution towards someone who we believe has wronged us. And sometimes we wrong ourselves also. It's not always like somebody is trying to harm you. Sometimes we also wrong our own self. So that's the reason the word comes there as self forgiveness. And what is forgiveness? Many people do argue with us and try to say that if we keep on forgiving the other person, that person might turn out to be a monster. He might put us into chains and he might start harassing us, or he might continue bringing us into a pitiable conditions. So forgiveness is the power that breaks the chain of bitterness, anger, and it sets you free from the shackles of your own prison as such. So here, when we are human beings and we are sharing our relationship with other individuals, and not all the time the relationship would be harmonious. Knowingly or unknowingly, a person might hurt you with their words, with their actions, or sometimes they can hurt a person who might be very close to you. Here I'm trying to talk about the transgression a person might carry out against another individual whom you like very much. It could be killing your own family members by another person, like a criminal act or something like that. Since I'm going to restrict myself to interpersonal forgiveness, we'll try to concentrate on that, because that becomes another different domain where I'm trying to talk about the criminal act and how the offense and how we're trying to forgive the offender as such. Now coming to this physical health, many studies have told us very clearly, because here I'm trying to present you all the actual facts, the researches which has been carried out predominantly by the scholars in the field as such. You can notice that if a person is having a lot of self-blame to do, or anger expressions, or this hostility, which is supposed to be one of the quality a person has within his system as such, it can influence health. And I think we have countless research findings, and the notable one which I have quoted is Affleck and his group of researchers in the laboratory at Miami University, which he carried out, that is in 1987. Then we have this Miller and Smith, who carried out a very extensive research. We were trying to correlate this blaming others for one's own misfortune along with emotional well-being and physical health. And they did find how by blaming others, these people are making their own life pitiable as well as regrettable as such. And why do we forgive? We sometimes forgive not because we are wrong, but because staying angry robs us of happiness. All the time, anger is not expected here. Now here I would like to talk about my collaborator called as Townsend, what he had carried out in 2008. Now, when you try to talk about men and women who forgive more and who gets a lot of benefit out of this forgiveness, obviously it was found that among the women, forgiveness of self, others, and feeling forgiven by God each predicted a reduced depressions. Another important point I would like to highlight here is a victim's motivation for forgiving an offender might also influence the relation between forgiveness and mental health. Since today being a World Mental Health Day, I am trying to bring a lot of references towards this mental health and how by forgiving the person who has hurt you, it can a lot of benefits. It could be like, the relation is moral or relational, epigenetic, or it can be religious or lack of alternatives also. But the carry-on messages, the more we are trying to express forgiveness towards that person, the more we are going to feel the less amount of stress as such. Very beautifully, when at the laboratory of Yale University, when she was carrying out her research, she coined this word called as rumination. What is this rumination all about? It is just like a rocking chair. We sit on a chair and keep on brooding over a problem, or you can use the word as worrying, without trying to do anything comprehensive in order to overcome that particular problem. This rumination also has this effect, very negative effect on this forgiveness as such. And I think in 2007, even Wedelson, Madsen, as well as Anison, when they carried out the research, they found that there was what you call the ruminative brooding mediated the relationship between forgiveness and depressive effect as such. And here I would like to talk to you all about, does the person who perpetuates offense, how does the thing work out in this particular system as such? That is, seeking and receiving forgiveness is related to purchase mental health. That is, when Townsend, when they carried out their research, they found that women sought forgiveness that did mean men, and that forgiveness, seeking forgiveness was related to a greater likelihood of depression. Another important aspect that I want to highlight over here is whether this person was affiliated to a religious group as such, that is, whether they were Catholic or Protestant Christian traditions. They were the first person to make an attempt to ask for forgiveness as such. That is, it had a positive effect. The religion also has this positive effect as such. Currently, there's one longitudinal research which I'm carrying out using this red cap as one of the survey methods. I've tried to find, especially whether Hinduism also has the same healing power as well as Islam also can contribute. Because most of the research is carried on the West, they will try to highlight about the religious affiliation that is very predominant in their country as such. And here, the feeling of forgiveness by others and by the higher power, does it mean that they're going to feel or there's going to be improved mental health outcomes? Yes, especially if a person feels that the God is going to forgive me for whatever wrong I have done, or it could be the nature and humanity in general, obviously the person is going to get, or he is going to improve his mental health as such. And again, I'm trying to quote the scientific studies carried out by Levens and their group in 2011 when they investigated mental health effects of receiving forgiveness. That is, it's not only you trying to give forgiveness to others and you are trying to enhance your mental health. Sometimes the other person who receives forgiveness from you, even they also feel very good about themselves as such. That is, it was related to resentment as well as purpose in life, as well as being forgiven by God was related to resentment and purpose in life. In the sense, when you're forgiven by others, what benefit do you get? When you're forgiven by God, what benefit you get is one and the same as far as their research work clearly indicates to us. That is, we have an improved mental health. And here I'm trying to talk about what Hall, and this is another my collaborator called Fincham, when they were trying to talk about the forgiveness as a term, trying to speak about self-condemnation. Maybe a doctor who's working on a patient wrongly does an operation, or sometimes the teacher also, they have done some mistake towards their student. It could be, you can use the word as partiality as such, or maybe they have been partial to certain person and they were not able to give a proper justice to those persons' marks, you can say, or behavior as such. That time also a person might start feeling the self-condemnation. That is, they might start feeling unforgiveness towards themselves. This also, when they were trying to carry out their risk, that is Worthington in 2012, they did find that self-forgiveness also has an benefits a person can get out of it. That is, self-forgiveness also will make a person to have reduced anxiety, you can say, anxiousness, depression, and even retaliation as such. And here I would like to talk about this another collaborator called Charlotte Willett, who have been carrying out a very scientific work at her laboratories, and especially what work she's carrying out at the North Carolina Institute. There she's working on this PTSD clinic on male veterans who have been in the army, you can call, they were working in the army. And especially when you're working in the army, it is quite obvious that you end up killing or harming the other individuals. And what's the outcome? These people start feeling guilty. Why did I kill another person? Or maybe a child they must have killed, or they must have raped a woman who was just a part of their invasion, you can say. What do they suffer from? It is obviously the post-traumatic stress syndrome they'll be suffering from, then the state anxiety, the trait anxiety, and the depression. When the self-condemnation was reduced in them in the form of forgiving themselves, they started feeling less depressed, as well the state anxiety reduced, as well they were feeling less anxiety about themselves. And here we go a little more deeper into these people's works, especially I really admire the work these people have been carrying out. And here they are trying to talk about the chronic illnesses or diagnosis which has been carried out of these persons. And this is the area which really needs a lot of intensive and rigorous as well as inexhaustible research activity has to be carried out. That is, they were trying to find the self-forgiveness can be used as a coping strategy for people who receive life-changing and chronic diagnoses such as cancer, the spinal cord injuries, as well as chronic musculoskeletal pain as such. So these research findings which they gave to the world of research, it has to be carried out in a controlled manner, because these are just probable prospects, or you can say probability, because they are not self-aware. This has been very well carried out by Jen when she was trying to work on emotional coping strategy as such. Participants, these are some of the research work that we have carried out in our own laboratories over here, and these are some of those that we got it in a form of publications in the international journals. And currently we have been carrying out two study which it is still will be carried out for another 2 years. Another one which is coming shortly for those doctors, and it is again about forgiveness or self-forgiveness. So with this presentation, I would like to thank you all for all your patience for listening to my presentations. If you'll have questions, Krishna, I think I can take one question. And besides questions, this one, Krishna, I'll be sending you the slides. And if anybody wants any information in a form of questionnaires or whatever, or even my link, which I'm recently have set it up with using Red.
Okay, Dr. Kamble. So, Rubric is so kind of you, and it was wonderful as usual. And it has to go into the mind of people that we need to work on the forgiveness, which is very important for our own well-being. I think people will be approaching you for your guidance. Sure. Thank you so very much, Sanjana.
Hello. So next we have is Dr. Vasudha Prakash, clinical psychologist and founder of We Excel. Dr. Vasudha on her mission to help the special children and their parents, also getting up schools and other programs to give access to facilities in small towns and rural areas for persons affected by special needs. We had requested Dr. Vasudha to address this forum, as many students want to study clinical psychology. She is here to enlighten what is being a clinician.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, clear.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Krishnan, for having me on this forum. It was only yesterday I got to know about this program. So let's see. I hope I add value to this very erudite group you have over here. So the topic I've been given today is about being a clinician, a clinical psychologist. So I'll give you a little bit of background in that I did my clinical psychology several years ago in Mumbai, And I've been practicing, of course. There was a brief period when I was in the US, not brief actually, many years in the US, where I focused my attention on special education and education related work. So which again was really, I was straddling both the worlds, because working in special education, there was a lot of, I would say, opportunity, a lot of context for me to use my experience as a clinical psychologist. Now, I'm assuming that this talk is directed, my target group is students, aspiring clinical psychologists. So I'm going to start off at the very beginning. To be a clinical psychologist, of course, we all do a lot of training. We do a bachelor's, maybe a master's program, sometimes PhD, MPhil and all of that. And in the courses vary from country to country. In India, yes, I think the courses are rather pedantic, a little bit more focused on theory. It would be really wonderful if there was more practice and there was more hands-on work, and that would make us so much more, nothing, even special education, as you know, I'm deeply in special education, even that, whatever number of courses you do, when you're in the field and doing the work, that's when the real education begins. That's the same over here. Now, I want to go a little bit back and see why many people want to choose this as a field or a career. They want to become a psychologist. So typical answers that we receive is that many times it is to know themselves better, understand themselves better. Who are they? And this quest of who am I goes back not only to this lifetime, sometimes to, you know, spiritual realms, past lives, future lives. Like, you are so deeply curious about why you happen to be here, why are you in this situation, and why is the other person in that situation, to understand the whole framework of life. Such deep curiosity. The other reason many people get into this field is to understand people around them, to understand relationships around them, to say that why did this happen, or they may have a relative who behaves they're very difficult to deal with, and then why is it like this? So it's also about the people surrounding them. And typically people who choose this field are also people persons, so to speak. Their driving force is relationships and people. Just like the driving force of some people can be money, can be career, can be so many things. The driving force of many people who choose this field is often people and relationships. And the third, many times people say that I choose this field because I want to help others, and which is all extremely valid reasons to become a psychologist, to help people, to understand people, to go deeper, all of that. And a very important aspect, now if you go to each of these reasons and sources of why we become a clinical psychologist, one very important reason is that they want to know themselves better. Whether that is a source or not, that's a very important aspect of becoming a clinical psychologist or somebody who works in this field, is to know yourself better, to invest in this whole exploration of who you are. Unless you know who you are and befriend yourself and become your best friend, and accept yourself with your fears, your demons, your anxieties, all that define you, your good, bad, ugly, you know yourself better. The place from which you give of yourself or you listen to the other person, that is determined by this. How much you invest in exploring yourself, knowing yourself, going deep within yourself. So I think that is my first thing. What is it to be a psychologist? You begin with understanding who you are, your insecurities, your anxieties, your fears, all of those, and to love yourself. Basically, when you go a little deeper, you know that when you explore your relationships, a lot of those relationships about you not having made peace with yourself about so many things. So to forgive and love yourself, I think that is the biggest investment you can make as a person who enters this field. And this you can do by yourself going for therapy. You know, that was one of the criteria, that you go for therapy yourself. When you take this field in other countries like the US, they do stipulate so many hours of therapy for the person who's getting trained. Because when you go for therapy, you understand the process yourself. You understand the process yourself, and then you have the humility to understand that you are as much as in need of inputs or support as the other person. So you really go deep. And the other thing is you can also, and when you know yourself better, your empathy also increases when you listen to another person, and you also become a little bit more tuned in with the processes of other people. So I'm saying that to be a clinician, yes, the whole set of training programs, that is important, but the whole graduation alone is not enough. I think all students should look for courses also. Other people who have been working in the field, like some people go in for transactional analysis, some people go for anthroposophy, they go for so many things. So this is a very important aspect. So get trained properly, know yourself, invest in programs, in therapy, in whatever processes that are available to you to understand yourself better, go deeper into yourself. The next point I'd like to make is develop the fine art of observation. The observation of the other person. Now, in VXL, and I've been fortunate to be exposed to a lot of Rudolf Steiner thinking and philosophy, which is called anthroposophy. In every time you take a course in anthroposophy, the first morning, it's all very structured. The first you have a reflection and reading. The second thing everybody is asked to do is to do something called the plant observation. You're taught to observe. Go and choose and befriend a tree or a plant or a shrub and watch that plant for a very long time, and then even draw the plant. What it is trying to teach you impassive observation, to not attach, to observe the physical form completely. No judgment, your emotions don't come in, just observe. And then you also, then the next step is to see what emotions that evokes in you, that observation. So this is a wonderful training about how you can start observing the people you aspire to help, or that in order to help another person, you become a good observer for anything and anybody. And if you can observe without putting yourself in it, in either by way of judgment or by way of opinions or by way of any prejudices or bias, if you can just observe without your emotions or your thoughts coming in, that is a second part of being a clinician, observation. And you can practice this just simply by choosing a plant or a tree and observing it, and that plant or the tree starts speaking to you. It shows, why am I formed like this? Why are my arms like this? Why are my branches like this? Why are my leaves so intricate? So you start wondering, and you start developing a relationship with something even as inanimate, so to speak. I mean, generally as a tree. So to learn the fine art of observing people. So this is the second point I want to make. And the third is helping people. Now, even during this pandemic, all of us are affected by it some way or the other. And I'd say there is an equal measure of good and bad that has manifested itself during this period. Some of us have learned, we have discovered new sides to ourselves. That which it is called the unborn self, the unborn part of you gets manifested during this period. Yes, there are many sad stories, but there are also many stories which are new to us. So for example, many people process this with a lot of anxiety. So when you have a client who's struggling with, say, anxieties during pandemic or any anxiety, to just support them and know how to listen. Just listening in a very connected way, and that space that comes between the client and you when you listen, that actually really triggers so much healing. And many times it's not what you say. It's not also the way you are present in that space is the healing part of you, and which is really spiritual. So the Western way of looking at clinical psychology or counseling or therapy is very scientific. But then when you look at the Eastern way, there is a lot of spirituality that comes into that whole space, which you cannot discount, which is actually the crux of it. And I firmly believe that even medical professionals must bring this whole healing part of it into their medical treatment. Because when you go to a doctor who spends exactly 5 minutes taking down your history and then diagnosing quickly and prescribing medicines, versus the experience of going to a doctor who actually listens to you and actually listens to you with a certain healing touch, that whole experience is very different. How a person feels going to this doctor who's a healing listener versus a very professional doctor, that can be really different. So what I'm trying to say is that to prepare yourself also yourself as a person. Secondly, to hone your observation skills in such a way that you're able to observe and understand that other person without you entering the picture. The ability to keep the you outside of that whole thing, but bringing that part of you which is so healing, that is so compassionate, that's so full of love and kindness into that space is very important. Yes, we have different cognitive behavior therapies, so many umpteen kinds of therapies. And of course, from that space, you can bring in so many methodologies that we have all learned during our training period, and you can use them. But the primary requirement is the way you are present in that room with that client. That's so important. And of course, I'm also very, nobody lives in a vacuum, you see. Everybody lives with other people, and the relationships with other people determine to a large extent your mental state. So we cannot run away from the fact that our mental state is determined by the relationships in our life. So many times, like the previous speaker said, that to be with yourself as a very forgiving presence, but also know how to be with other people. So many times my therapy involves the family, because for the family to become aware of what is happening to that other person, to have empathy in that whole, when they go back home, what happens to them. That's an important component. But I will also add one or two important points, is that a lot of what happens to us is determined in our childhood. So childhood is a determining period of how we feel about ourselves, about our self-esteem, about security and all of that. And our education system and our parenting systems do not foster good mental health. So I think we have to go back, really go back and examine what are we feeding into the child, whether it's physical feeding of food or emotional feeding or psychological feeding. What are we putting into that child? And what you put into the child is what is going to come out as speech, thoughts, and all of those things. So that now with the new education policy 2020, there's a lot of hope. So we are cramming children into the thought realm too early. We are not waiting for the body to develop. We are not waiting for certain systems to become aligned before we start, thrusting facts into them. The use of hands, the use of producing things, the importance of being with nature, the importance of letting the child be without a constant instruction going behind as a background noise. The importance of how do you raise a child so that they become really valid, viable, effective, beautiful human beings and creative human beings. That is where our focus has to be. And education has to be healing, very healing. And therefore, even medicine, all of that has to become very healing, the way we are present with each other. The coldness has to go. And I think that many times, a lot of our mental illnesses can be rooted back to feeling isolated, even when we are with a crowd, feeling alone, feeling unsupported, feeling that, nobody understands me, nobody gets me, nobody's there for me. Even though you have a wife and you have a family, you have children, somewhere the connect is missing. So we need to go back to becoming connected with each other. What will make us connected? What is the role of truth? What is the role of having the freedom to speak your mind? What is the role of the way we come across with each other? And we're all in a very big hurry to become independent and run away from home. But okay, somebody who interferes in your life is also very important, because that interference is also you hold the person. True deep caring of another person is what is very important for mental well-being. So having said these words, I'm open to any questions you may have, but I do think that we have the philosophy of anthroposophy has many answers for the modern day psychologist. So I would recommend that some readings happen for people from Rudolf Steiner's theories on psychotherapy as well as counseling, and that has really opened our minds a lot. And thank you again, Mr. Krishnan, for this opportunity. And it's my pleasure to be in the presence of so many people who are in the field and who are quite, well educated and erudite. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vasudha, a good friend of me and I know my cousin. And it was an immense pleasure that you could make it, and you address the student psychology student community and the professionals. Thank you so very much. And again,
I also urge people to choose special education as a field for counseling, because parents and families who are affected by disability need a lot of counseling support, because when you have a child with special needs in your family, that the acceptance takes many years and it's a very complex process. So there is a very potent field for people who aspire to contribute to the well-being of people. So that's one of my urging you all to do that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that was a wonderful point to finish with, because even in our own family there is a person who are not even after persons like me prompting them to go to the occupational therapist and doctors, they didn't do it. But now the child is lacking about 10 years now. It's lagged behind 10 years. It's very pathetic. It was identified when the boy was about 2 years. So that is a very dangerous situation is prevailing. Thank you very much for pointing out that.
Thank you.
My though it was a very short lecture for everybody to put in and address the crowd, it was very enlightening. Many talks were insightful, and people were asking questions in the chat box, and it was wonderful. And my heartfelt sincere thanks to you, thanks to one and all, Dr. Kaur, Dr. Shashikala, Dr. Lawrence Nathan, Vasudha Prakash, Dr. Vasudha Prakash, and Dr. Cecilia, Dr. Shilpa Pandit, and Dr. Shanmugh Kamble. Because I'm actually very fascinated with his work. He always works on this this forgiveness, that we carry it like a pressure cooker. We keep it inside. We don't tell them. When I see the person, also we see it stretch. So it's a beautiful thing he is doing. Thank you so very much, and for your wonderful time. And I have seen all the people, they were stick to the session. They can just like that. Okay, I have finished my lecture. I can go off. It was not that. Dr. Kaur is there from the beginning until the end. One and all, thank you so very much. I would like any of the participants who would like to share this experience of 2 hours listening to 7 prominent psychologists. Would you like to share something? We will be very happy to hear that. You can unmute yourself and talk. Please unmute yourself and you can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mohan.
Yeah, Krishnan, it was just
Mohan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it was like a 2020 game, where this full-paced, very action-oriented, very informative, and really feel grateful and thanks to all those people who have presented.
Thank you. Morgan is, he's calling from Australia, and quite a few people from Australia is listening. It is a wonderful thing. Even it is late evening for them. So thank you, Mohan, and for sharing it with your friends. It means a lot to us. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all. Have a great, mental health day, and we all join hands together to improve. And as we have the mission of generating more and more skilled helpers, which is the need, because otherwise the people live in danger. So that is the reason the Wellbeing Center came into existence. Thank you very much. Thank you once again, and maybe we will catch up sometime.
Before you sign off?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a general observation that the stigma surrounding counseling and therapy is gradually ebbing away over a period of time, especially in the cities. I experienced that, but is that also something that people in this forum feel that the stigma is dropping?
I did experience that. People are willing to come, and that is changing. Actually, people were not earlier. They were not even coming. They don't like to say, but though it prevails, but there is a change I could see in the last 8 years. I could see a lot.
Yes.
But what I felt, my personal experience is, the seekers are in danger. That I would say, because people just finish their studies and they get onto the profession, and I feel that has to come from inside. That I have to be skilled. I have to learn a lot. So so we are responsible. So that part is, it's lacking. That is what I'm feeling for the last 7-8 years since I am into this. So that is the reason I am onto. So let us see, let us hope, what happens in the next couple of years. Dr. Shubhashri from MSSW would like to say a few, please.
Thank you, Mr. Krishnan. And I first of all congratulate Mr. Krishnan for arranging such a wonderful galaxy of professionals on this occasion of Mental Health Day. All my good old friends are there in the forum. I'm really happy to see them all and listen to them. Though I joined little late, all of them really contributed very well for the topic they have chosen. And I really enjoyed the last few speakers who have really given the inputs, because I could join only with them. And I think what Madam said is about the the stereotypical attitude of people around, that has really I think come down during this pandemic. I could see that a lot of people are coming forward for counseling, seeking help. Even the smallest thing they are addressing at least. Now I should say that there is a lot of rise in awareness, and also people are spreading awareness to go and seek help from mental health professionals. That may be because of this pandemic one, which is actually creating such a kind of an anxiety or something. Thank you so much, and I congratulate Wellbeing Center and Krishnan for this wonderful program, which is rendered excellently well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will just catch up in the future days. Thank you very much. Dr. Kaur, you would like to say something? You said I noticed you were raising your hand.
Yes, definitely. It was a very, very inspiring and informative session. All the speakers were really good. And I would like to answer Dr. Vasudha's question. Like she asked about the stigma related to it. I think we as psychologists and we are like the students, we need to motivate our students and people who are into this field. We need to aware that we need to spread that awareness. That is very important, because we ourselves are not somewhere I feel that we are also lacking. So we need to spread that awareness, and especially in the field of special education, as you said. I think there we are lacking. We actually need to work a lot in this field. Other rest, of course, there is a change. People are coming, they are going to counselors, they are going to mental health professionals, but still it is very slow. At least in this part of, like I see it in North India, the stigma is still there. There is a change, but it's very slow.
Yes. The other area I think we have to focus on is geriatric counseling. Old people are really struggling. Yes.
Right. And I would like to mention here that a few of us, from other fields also. I have some old retired army officers with me, and we have started a senior inclusion project. Okay. And we are working on that. And during the pandemic time, we were providing psychological counseling online to them, and we are receiving very good response from them. So that I feel is something. And another thing I would like to mention, because we have a galaxy of people here, intellectuals and students, that in our institute, I'm working in HMV Jalandhar, And we have a course which has been approved by UGC. It is BWalk Mental Health Counseling. BWalk Mental Health Counseling, and now we have got the approval for MWalk Mental Health Counseling also, and we are working in it. And there we are providing a lot of practical training, hands-on training to students. We are also sending them to institutes, clinical counseling centers, and even with schools for special children. So our students are also visiting drug de-addiction centers and practicing there. So they are having internships. So I think we need to spread it. We need to create that awareness. We need to actually work at the ground level, grassroots level, so that we can do something in the interest of community. This is my opinion.
Yes. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Same here. Same to you.
The Wellbeing Center is honored to have you all here, including the people who have addressed the crowd as well as the participants. We are really honored. That shows the interest for everybody. Yes, one more person would like to say something. Dr. Veena, please unmute yourself and.
Good evening, Krishnan sir. That was an excellent.
You can be on video.
I have a poor network here, so.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Excuse me for that, and I'm very happy that I have known a few speakers like Cecilia ma'am, Kamble sir, and Sashikala ma'am already, but listening to Vasudha Prakash ma'am and Ashmeen Kaur ma'am, it was quite interesting, and thank you for bringing a galaxy of people on this world mental health. Only you could do this. Thank you so much, and thank you for making us a part of this. Thank you so much, Krishnan sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great evening. We will catch up sometime.
Thank you so much.